All right, NYG, thank you for this. I really appreciate this. Um, Before I really get into it, there is one thing that I want to address. It does deal with the NFL. I talked about it yesterday on um, the Reading the Tax show. Yesterday, I spoke on the situation. Go check out the episode if you want to get more into it. One of the things I wanted to talk about, because I call this life changing mentality. Um, a lot of it deal. We all know about the Tyreek Hill um, arrests. Traffic situation. You've probably already seen the body cam now, and I've upped my ante because originally I said I wanted the cops to, just get some type of training to, correct and better themselves, because I really wasn't too sure. But based on those body cams, all those cops need to be fired. Plain and simple. There's no reason why you need to, just so you guys understand who's that white guy. That's Scotty Scheffler. If you remember the golfer who got arrested, he was never taken down to the ground, but Tyreek Hill was. And I have an issue with that. And that was a situation where, as Chris Canty said today, you were just trying to put the boy in his place. That's all that was, and I have issues with it. So, um, where is it? Miami Dade, whatever it is. NFL, you need to get behind them, and you need to speak out about this, and you need to demand that all those cops lose their jobs. And I'm going to take it an even step further. They should never work in any form of law enforcement. I don't care if it's CIA, FBI, another police department, correctionals. I don't care if it's as a security guard or as a bouncer. They should never be allowed to quote unquote protect and serve because they have destroyed the trust. So that's all I wanted to say about that. So let me get into Coach's Corner for you guys now. I'm going to start out with the New York Liberty, as I usually always do. So going into the playoff, Liberty today they had a game against the Dallas Wings. New York, let me bring up the standings for you guys. And here we go. New York was standing in at 29-6. Well, they won tonight, so now that's going up to 30-6. So they're further solidifying themselves in the playoff positioning. So this past week, Thursday, they beat the Wings 77-70. Then on Sunday, they won a big game to sweep the season series against the Las Vegas Aces 75-71. So, they continue to maintain the top regular season spot, as the season winds down. They do have a tough test coming up this coming Sunday against number 2 seed Minnesota, who actually won today also. Now, it is going to be at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, so it's a home advantage. Hopefully, the fans will go out there. Minnesota has given New York problems. I think right now with the Commissioner's Cup, I think they're up 2-1. So, but it's a big test, and this is what New York is going to need as they gear themselves up for a run in the playoffs, and hopefully New York's women's basketball first championship, because New York definitely needs it. It's been a long time coming, in reference to that. So hopefully we will go ahead and get that taken care of. Now, during that course of that time, Brianna, where is it? Brianna Stewart. I lost the image. So Brianna Stewart, though, over the course of the last 10 games, not including today, she's averaged 22 and a half points, 8 rebounds, 3.4 assists. So she's really gearing herself up. Tonight she had 27 points. So that's a big thing. Right now I'm projecting that if New York wins 3 of the last 4, they're definitely going to solidify the number 1 because of Minnesota right behind us. And if Minnesota loses, I think it'll get down to 2. So, and the last thing on the Liberty, just a little fun fact I want to give you guys and bring it up. Da-da-da. This deals with Sabrina Ionescu. something pretty exciting, which I found very um, interesting. And I was like, oh, I really didn't realize that. So, and it deals with bang. Here we go. She's fifth now in franchise history with 789 rebounds, and she's been in the league. What this is with her fourth year, I believe it is. So I would have thought New York would have had more people or more players who moved up the rebounding ladder. But kudos to her. Congratulations to her. Now, again, these does not include tonight's stats, so just add on to it if you want to go take a look at tonight's stats for um, Sabrina Ionescu and the Liberty. So that's that in terms of the New York Liberty. Next, we're going to go ahead and talk about the WNBA. Let me bring back my screen for the W. And it deals with starting with, for those of you who don't know, it's a tough deal for the Chicago Sky. Chicago Sky, who currently sit in the eighth spot, they lost their leading their leading players in rookie forward Angel Reese. She's been put on the season-ending injury list with a wrist injury. She went to have surgery. I think she either has it or she will be going to have surgery soon and start the recovery process. It's tough for New York, for Chicago, because they're fighting for that last playoff spot. And Reese has done well, contributing, being the leading rebounder. Also, with her being in contention for the Rookie of the Year with Caitlin Clark. So we'll see how it ends up. I still think she'll end up at number 2, but right now, Chicago is still fighting for that last playoff spot. Now, the push comes down to 3 teams: Atlanta, Chicago, and Washington. Chicago currently holds the spot. They were before tonight's game. They were 1 game ahead of Atlanta. Atlanta ended up losing tonight, and then 2 games over Washington. So they're going to be fighting tooth and nail. All 3 teams are playing teams that are either in or fighting for the playoffs. Chicago plays Washington, at Minnesota, Phoenix, at Atlanta, and they close out at Connecticut. So that's a tough one right there, especially because they have to play the number 2 and the number 3 teams in the playoff spot. Atlanta plays against Minnesota, which they lost tonight. Washington in a home and then away. Chicago, and then they're at New York. So they end up playing the number 1 and the number 2 teams basically to close out the season. In Washington, they finish up against at Chicago, away and then home to Atlanta, New York, and then Indiana. So they have, some would argue probably maybe a relatively easier than the other 2. But if I had my opinion, I still think Atlanta is going to make it. They definitely have the talent, they have the coaching, and they have a little bit of a slight edge in veteran leadership, especially with Tina Charles over there in Atlanta. So also the fight for the other playoff spots or playoff positionings. Number 2 and number 3 are going to be between Minnesota and Connecticut. I think Minnesota's going to edge them out. And with number 4 and 5 with Vegas and Seattle, those are pretty much are going to be a dogfight down the wire. And then Indiana, they're close to locking in the number 6. I think they're pretty secure because they got 2 games up on Phoenix right now, and Phoenix has been losing ground these past few games there. So, but you guys see the overall record, with these teams. Oh, sorry, I didn't have Washington up. So, but you can see, like I said, Atlanta lost today. So, I don't think is Chicago playing tonight. Let me double check that ahead. Put that down. WNBA and Chicago it's Connecticut and Los Angeles. So Atlanta is a game and a half behind Chicago. So but that's it right there in terms of the WNBA for you guys. So next I'm going to move over to some college football now, and I'm going to start with Syracuse. Syracuse took on the Georgia Tech Rambling Wreck, the Yellow Jack. I'm sorry, the Yellow Jackets. Let's say Rambling Wreck. Sorry. Um, Georgia Tech was number three in terms of the rankings, the Associated Press rankings. So this was a big game for Syracuse. Let me close this out. Okay, here we go. And Syracuse ended up victorious, coming away with the win, 31-28 against Georgia Tech. So right now, Georgia Tech falls to 2-1 overall and 1-1 in conference, while Syracuse falls to moves up to 2-0 in overall and 0-1 in the conference. Now, offensively, the Orangemen were led by quarterback Kyle McCord, transfer over from The Ohio State University. McCord went 32 of 46 for 381 yards, 4 touchdowns. He also rushed 3 times for 10 yards, no interceptions. Now, during the course of the game, Syracuse actually jumped out to a 21-7 lead in the second quarter. McCord in that first half threw 3 touchdowns. He ultimately threw 4 for the game. And he was very effective and decisive, in terms of his overall play. In terms of the overall yardage, I had it there. But in the game themselves, they went for 514 yards. There it is. They accumulated 514 yards of total offense. So, they pretty much dominated this game offensively against Georgia Tech. So that was a big thing. Now they need to work on their special teams because Georgia Tech blocked a field goal and a punt and recovered an onside kick. So that's something that they definitely need to work on going forward. And to close out the Syracuse NFL Hall of Famer, Dwight Freeney, ended up having his jersey lifted up into the rafters for the. So that's something special there. That was a ceremony that was done at halftime. So
he played for Syracuse.
Yes, he did. He played for Syracuse University. So
wow.
That was big. I remember him very much so back in the day. So he was a dog at Syracuse, trust and believe. So next up for Syracuse, they actually host Stanford September 20th in Syracuse. That'll be a 7:30 kickoff. So I believe that's a Friday night game, if I'm not mistaken. Week 4. Yeah, it's the 20th would be a Friday night game. Why did they not have? Oh, I have Big Ten locked in. That's why. Come on, Edward. Lock out a Big Ten. There we go. Yeah, they're going to be playing. They're going to be hosting Stanford Friday the 20th at 7:30. So this will also be an ACC conference game because remember, Stanford is now part of the ACC. So kind of strange, I know, just like with the Big Ten, it's strange. So, but it's part of the business of doing college football nowadays. So, but we'll see what happens. More than likely, they're going to come away with a win. I think in the ACC, yeah, Syracuse is tied for Boston College with the lead. Like I said, and Stanford is 1-1 overall, and they haven't had a conference game as of yet. So, in other college football news, if you haven't been paying attention, the Fighting Irish, Notre Dame, had a big game, or it ended up being a big game, where they ended up taking on Northern Illinois University of the MAC. And they ended up in a fight of a game. They were projected to be to walk away with that game, and it ended up not going their way. Northern Illinois ended up defeating Notre Dame 16-14. They put on an offensive game, outclassing the Irish 388 to 286 yards. They even blocked a 61-yard field goal at the end of the game. So that was a devastating loss for Notre Dame. As many in the fan base have begun questioning if head coach Marcus Freeman is the right man to lead the program. So it's a big loss, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on them and how Coach Freeman, how he adjusts and where they go from there. The other big game, the Texas Longhorns went into the Big House, which is in for the University of Michigan. They completely dismantled Michigan, 31-12. The Longhorns jumped out to a 24-3 lead in the first half. Quarterback Quinn Ewers, he went 24-36, 246 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Texas rushed for 143 yards and 32 carries and a touchdown. I mean, final score to me was not even close as the final results. Even for the Wolverines, their quarterback play, it seems to be a major issue, in terms of their development. Quarterback Davis Warren, while he went 22 or 33 for 204 yards, 1 touchdown, he did throw 2 interceptions. But the biggest thing for me was the rushing for Michigan. They only gained 80 yards on 23 carries. Donovan Edwards, who was considered a Heisman Trophy candidate going into the season, he only accounted for 41 yards on 8 carries, no touchdowns. So this win for Texas is the first against the reigning national champions since 1998. So that's a big thing for them. So, and the last thing in terms of college football games, Nebraska took on Colorado, and they took them out deep in the woods and put a complete smackdown on those Buffaloes. Quarterback Dylan Raiola played above his class because he's a true freshman. Now, his passion was efficient as he went 23 of 30 for 185 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, to further expand on this performance, though, this was about Nebraska dominating the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football, man. Totally dominated Buffalo up front. So, and they were very physical with them. Colorado ended up losing senior safety Shiloh Sanders to a broken forearm, and some projections have him out 4 to 6 weeks. So I don't know. I'm going to see where that goes from there. So final thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is Coach Ed's college football rankings. So I'm going to give you guys my rankings right now. Let's bring that up. Oops, not this window. And damn it. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Got it. Can you guys see it? Right now, the bottom five are Boston College at 25, Iowa State at 20, Nebraska at 23, Clemson at 22, Washington at 21. Going into 20 is Louisville. 19 is Notre Dame. 18 is Michigan. 17 is Arizona. 16 is LSU. 15 is Kansas State. 14 is Oklahoma State. 13 is Oklahoma. 12 is USC. 11 is Miami. And going into the top 10, you have Utah coming in at number 10. Oregon at number 9. Missouri at number 8. Penn State at number 7. Tennessee at number 6. Ole Miss at number 5. Alabama at number 4. Ohio State at number 3. Texas at number 2. And we all can figure out who's number 1. Georgia will be number 1. So that's my top 25. How I see it. Go ahead and rip it apart. I don't care, but that's my opinion and how I feel about it in reference to that. And the last thing I'm going to touch on today, it's going to be college football also. And it's going to deal with my Scarlet Knights. You knew I was going to go there. If you didn't, you're crazy. You're fooling yourself. couple of things that I want to talk about. Where's the? Here we go. Rutgers took on a Met program, and they played Akron, and they defeated Akron 49-17. So, was a big game. The reason why this game was so dominant by Rutgers, running back Kyle Monangai rushed for 208 yards on 27 carries. Let me make sure do I have everything right. There it is. That's what I was looking for. And here's Kyle Monangai, number 5, who's getting lifted into the air for you guys. So, Monangai rushed for 208 yards on 27 carries. The 208 yards is a career high. Also, 3 carries. On the season, Monangai has rushed for 373 yards and 4 touchdowns already. Also contributing offensively was quarterback Ethan Kaliakmanis. He threw for 3 touchdowns to contribute with what he did. He was 14-23 for 230 yards. He also threw an interception to go along with the touchdowns. One of the things I wanted to talk about with Kaliakmanis, he had one of the most beautiful passes in a long time in Rutgers, in the Rutgers fan base. He was a 58-yard pass to wide receiver Chris Long. But on the play, Kaliakmanis pumped fake to Long to his right, and then Long got behind the defensive back, and then Kaliakmanis just put the ball in the air over the top, where Long just caught it right over his shoulder, right into his hands, in perfect stride, and the defensive back was left falling and flailing, and ended up flat on his face, and then Long just basically glided into the end zone. And it's something that Rutgers fans haven't seen in a long time and have been craving for. We weren't able to do this last year, and now we see that you now have the opportunity to open up the passing game. So, and that's going to send a big message to the other schools that come in and play against Rutgers. You can't load the box like you did to try and take away the rushing attack, which now is also going to help in the rushing attack. You got a quarterback who's throwing 3 touchdown passes per game, as well as throwing the ball deep. It's now going to allow you to use the running attack a lot more efficiently and effectively. Now, the scores for Akron, they did account on the touchdowns were accounted for on blown opportunities. One was down the Akron left side. Rutgers blitz for some reason the safety, the linebacker, and the cornerback from that side, and they left that receiver by himself. The other safety who started on the other side of the field was trying to rotate over, and he could not get there, and I believe it was a 35-yard touchdown pass. It baffled me. I don't understand why. I think it's a blown coverage, so Rutgers is going to have to clean that up. Otherwise, teams are going to try and exploit the same thing. The other one was against the second and third units. It was a long touchdown run by the running back. But, I think I attribute that to young players being in the game. So it is what it is. This week, Rutgers is also on a bye. But next week, they're going to be traveling down to Blacksburg, Virginia, to take on the Virginia Hokies. So this bye comes at the right time because Rutgers has been dealing with a lot of injuries along the way. So hopefully we'll be able to get things going and be ready for Virginia Tech. So last couple of things I want to touch on. The first thing is in reference to Kyle Monangai. Excuse me. He has, by the East-West Shrine Bowl, he has been designated the Offensive Breakout Player of the Week. So it's a great accomplishment, and the Shrine Bowl is one of the top bowl programs that looks at all the seniors, and you get invited to the Shrine Bowl, and a lot of scouts are at that game. So this is where a lot of professional scouts start to really get to pay attention to some of the guys a little bit more in detail. So you're at this during the practice, the routine, just like with the East West, all the other different bowl games. So, but congratulations to Kyle for winning this award. Next thing I wanted to touch on, it deals with Ethan Kaliakmanis, two of them. Wait a minute, where is it? Here's the first one, and found it very interesting because it deals with a little bit of history for Rutgers. Ethan Kaliakmanis is the first Rutgers quarterback with 3 touchdown passes in consecutive games since Chris Laviano since in 2015. And I didn't realize that it's been that futile, these past few years historically for Rutgers. The play has been atrocious. That's 3 touchdowns in the first game against Howard, and now against Akron. Now, when the talent steps up, I do think it's going to go down, but at least it's telling us that, you know what, he's a serviceable quarterback and he takes advantage of the opportunities that are presented to him. The other thing with Ethan deals with a little information from the night report. These are his passing numbers. When he's kept clean, he's 26 of 40 for 309 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. That's a 128 NFL rating. When he's under pressure, just like any other quarterback, he's 3 of 7, 68 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 78.3 NFL rating. Not blitzed, 20 of 30, 218 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 121.3 NFL rating. When he's blitzed, he's 9 of 17 for 159 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 100.2 NFL rating. So that's pretty impressive to me. People want to talk about, his game in a sense, especially coming from Minnesota. I'm not saying he's, an elite quarterback, but he's a good quarterback and he's going to help benefit Rutgers in the long run. And the last thing I want to touch on is in terms of grading. Shout out to Mike Broadbent, one of the guys I follow. Rutgers continues to be one of the highest graded teams on PFF, currently at 93.9 overall grade, which places them 3rd in the FBS, behind only Ole Miss and the Ohio State University. So that's pretty impressive. And then when we talk about the offensive line, these are the starting offensive linemen. Tyler Needleham and Holland Pierce are the tackles, right tackle and the left tackle. Needleham is number 1, as you can see. Holland Pierce is number 22. Kawena Asamoah, he's the right guard. He's number 10, and Brian Felter is the left guard. He's number 43. And the center is Gus Zelinkas. He's ranked at number 29 overall. So this points to why Rutgers is doing so well is because of the offensive line. And who is the offensive line coach? Former New York Giants offensive line coach, Pat Flaherty. So, but that's pretty much it. That's what I wanted to give you guys today for Coach's Corner. Back to you, NYG.